Hi, this is Mike Munson. This is for Accounting 6650. It's presentation number 2, and I've chosen to do the whistleblower case. This is the case where Harry Markopolos discovered the Ponzi scheme that Bernie Madoff was running to deceive investors of millions of dollars. And I'm going to go through kind of the 7 steps that Trevino and Nelson talk about that a whistleblower should take to effectively protect themselves and to be a classified good whistleblower. Okay, so to start off, the first step is approaching your immediate manager if you can. In this case, is a little bit different because Bernie Madoff didn't work for the same company as Harry Markopolos. In fact, he was a competitor. And what had happened is Harry's manager asked him to figure out what Bernie was doing so they could replicate it within their own business. But quickly Harry realized that there was no way that Bernie was getting legal returns for his investors. And so what he did instead of going to his manager, who wouldn't have been able to influence a consequence anyway, is he went to the SEC office in Boston where he lived and reported his suspicions there. And the next step, it talks about discussing the issue with your family so they know that you are involved in a whistleblower case. And it talks about how his mother-in-law had to answer the door to his house because so many reporters would come around looking for questions and other things like that. And his wife also talks about how the newfound attention and fame would affect their family. And it doesn't talk about it, but I'm sure that he spent hours and hours away from his family looking through the information and gathering evidence against Bernie Madoff. The next step is take it to the next level. And usually in an in-company crime, this would be maybe going past your manager if you don't receive a positive response. But since this was outside of the company, instead of working through the Boston office, which he wasn't getting a great positive response, Harry went through the New York office, the SEC office, who actually had jurisdiction over Bernie Madoff, and he just continued to gather information and solidify the case. In the next step, it talks about contacting your company's ethics officer, and this is mostly to find out what you need to do to protect yourself as a whistleblower. And Harry talks about part of his motivation as coming from receiving a payout, but and assuming that, I'm guessing that he took all the necessary steps to qualify as a whistleblower. But it soon became apparent that he wasn't going to receive a payout, and if he did, it would be really minimal. But he continued to gather information on the case, more out of pride than anything, I'm assuming. Just so that he could bring down one of the greatest people on Wall Street through this crime. And then the last 3 steps, they don't really apply to this case because it's outside the company, but they are considered going outside chain of command, so jumping even higher to get a response out of a manager, going outside the company to an organization who might be interested in the information, and then ultimately leaving the company. And that's kind of a last response in case you can't get anything to work out. But since those 3 don't really apply, just in conclusion, Harry continued to send information to the SEC up until 8 months before the Ponzi scheme finally came out. And the SEC didn't solve the case. Bernie's sons actually turned him in, but even though the case didn't really turn out how Harry expected, I'm sure he got a lot of pride knowing that he solved the case before anybody else and spent all that time gathering the information and helping the SEC receive a tip about it. So he was a great whistleblower, even though he didn't get a payout, but all in all, it was a solid contribution on his part. And that is it. Thanks.